I want to talk with you this morning about one of our most basic human needs. Something that every one of us desires, something every one of us longs for in one way or another at some time or another. And I'm talking about the need every human being has to feel they matter. That there's some sort of significance to little old me. That I make a difference, that I'm important, at least to somebody. We're built, I believe, with a desire, maybe even a drive for greatness. It's really there. It's God-given, but it can easily get twisted around like any other desire or drive God gives us. It can be twisted around into something unhealthy. And we can make a fool out of ourselves, or we can make big mistakes or come close to making them, all because we want to feel like somebody. And I almost fell for a scam several years ago that was promising to make me feel like somebody and make me be somebody. In fact, when I got the letter, this was before I even moved to Mena. It was well before I moved to Mena. I got this official looking letter in a brown envelope. And you know who it was from? Company Who's Who in America. Who's Who in America. And I just kind of got a lump in my throat. Well, I guess they found me, you know. And I opened up the letter very carefully. You know, when you get a really good letter like that, you don't just rip it open. You take a knife and you cut it open because you want to preserve the envelope in case it needs to be framed one day alongside your picture in a museum or anything like that. And here's what that letter said. It was, this will show you it was a while back, so I was younger and dumber, okay? They were getting ready to print the 2007 edition of Who's Who in America. Yeah. And here's the way it was described. Who's Who in America is a biographical facts on exceptional leaders and achievers from all walks of life whose contributions have made a lasting impact on political, cultural, business, and academic frameworks of America and around the world. And so, we at Who's Who are seeking biographies of notable Americans whose distinguished achievements deserve to be honored and advertised. And they were inviting me to be in this book, Who's Who in America. Now, this book was going to be 6,700 pages long. And all I had to do to get it, I'd already done all the great things that led them to contact me in the first place. So now the only thing that was left was for me to write down a few basic biographical, professional achievements, educational levels that I'd attained, send it in along with $789. But $789 might have been the normal cost for everyday people who get an opportunity to be in Who's Who book. But for this one-time standing offer only, I could get in the book for $710. Well, what does that say? It says that even marketeers understand something very deep and basic to human nature. That everybody wants to know who's who. And they want to, all of us, starting with me, want I'll just say it, some recognition. I want somebody else to think that I'm worthwhile, that my life is counting for something. And Alfred Adler was one of the first and greatest psychologists. And he talked about this need we all have, the need for greatness, to be in who's who, to be thought of as a successful person, to believe that we matter. And here's what he said about it. Now, this is a powerful statement. And you men will understand the power of this statement more than the women. By the way, men are more driven, perhaps, by... No, take that back. I started to say men are more driven by this desire for greatness than women. That's not true. They're just driven for different forms of greatness. Men seek it in different places and faces in different ways. But here's what's true of us all. Adler said it long ago. He said the desire for greatness and or significance, the desire for significance is the most powerful drive in human nature, more powerful even than the sex drive. The feeling, the belief, the assurance that I matter, that I'm significant. Adler believed that we can't live without that. At least we cannot live healthy, happy lives without some of that. And he even said this: the cry of a baby in the crib. Now, obviously, that's partly that I need my diaper changed, I need to be fed. Totally true. But what's also true on a deeper level is, you know this, if you've ever had a kid and had to wean them from the bassinet in your bedroom and start them in their own room, and how long they cry until you come pick them up or until you let them quit crying. You know what that is? That's not about food. That's not about change me. That's about come hold me and assure me that you love me. Pretty deep stuff this is. It runs deep, and even when we grow up, we don't outgrow the need. It just takes different forms. The need to be significant. And so with men, it often shows up in having the biggest, the biggest bicep, biggest bank account, killing the biggest buck. I mean, it's amazing some of the things that we look at, that we try so hard to attain, accomplish, in order to assure others and really assure ourselves. I'm doing okay here. I really am. I'm accomplishing some stuff. I matter. Women, for some women, bigger breast, smaller wrinkles, bigger house, and cute pictures of my kids and grandkids on Facebook. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of the things that we put out on Facebook are all about letting everybody know, yep, doing good here. I don't know about you, but my life's going well. My kids are turning out great. Look how cute my grandchild is. Think about this. The stuff we are so proud of, big biceps and pretty babies. What if some aliens visited our planet trying to figure out what the most valuable commodity was on Earth, and the only thing they had to go by was watching what we post on Facebook? What would they conclude about our values, about what's important, what matters? Well, I don't know. I do know this. These ideas like the bigger this or the bigger that, the long, the big bank account, the long-running successful career, all that stuff. Those are manufactured by culture. Those are manufactured by culture, and in different cultures, guess what? People have different ideas, different values. They place a premium on things that may seem silly to you or me, but some of our commodities may seem silly to them. I want to show you an example of cultural differences. A picture of a man I cut out of a magazine a couple of years back. This man, an Indian man, I'm going to read you his little bio for who's who, because this man, whose name is Radhakant Bapa, 50 years old. I mean, he's only 50 and he's already achieved something of greatness. You know what he's getting? He got into the Guinness Book of World Records. No joke. And he didn't have to pay to get in there either. All he had to do was grow the world's longest ear hair. And if you look carefully at the picture, that is not a mullet behind his head. That is coming out of his ear. Okay? His ear hairs measured in, officially, according to Guinness records, 5.2 inches long. You try to beat that, men. That is a man thing, you know. And here's what he said when interviewed. Bapa said this: "Making it to Guinness World Records is indeed a special occasion for me and my family. God has been very kind to me." Different people value different things. When I was a little bitty fella, I watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood every day, and he assured me every day that I was special. And he would always say, "Just remember, in all the world, there's only one you." Totally true. You know what else is totally true? What the famous anthropologist Margaret Mead said. She said, "Always remember, you are absolutely unique, just like everybody else." And so it doesn't help a whole lot for Mr. Rogers to tell me I'm unique. I respect him a whole lot, by the way. That's a different sermon, though, and in a different topic. Some people do the same sort of thing with the idea of God's love. God loves me, so that makes me significant. But even then, I mean, God is love. God loves everybody, so what makes you so special? I mean, if you're a cynical person and you're desperate for feeling significant, that alone is not going to work for you, because there's nothing about that distinguishes you from anybody else. However, we were created, according to Genesis 1:26, in the likeness of God. There is a spark of divinity in us. There's something in us that is intended for greatness. That built-in potential is there. And the ability to dominate, the ability to conquer and accomplish is built in. And Jesus spent a lot of his time teaching very ordinary peasants. Listen, this gets serious here. Teaching very ordinary, illiterate peasants that they mattered to God because they did. And he also taught these ordinary, illiterate peasants that they were capable of great things. In fact, he even made this shocking statement that nobody really understands to this day. He said to those people, those disciples and others, he said, "You shall do greater things than I've done." You can do it. You can do it. And so if you're one of those disciples, and you're hearing this kind of talk for the first time in your life, and you're a normal human being who wants to feel significant, who has a natural built-in desire for greatness, and Jesus is talking about you can do great things, you can do even greater things for me, that's going to get your mind working, naturally. It would me, it would yours, I guess. And so I want you to see how this unfolded in a conversation from Mark chapter 10, verse 35 to 37. Then James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came over and spoke to him. Teacher, they said, we want you to do us a favor. What is your request, he asked. They replied, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in the places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. Well, it would be mighty easy to criticize James and John for wanting those special positions if I myself did not want special positions in one area of life or another. They're normal positions, and there's a whole lot you could say about that. Their request that was, we'll just say, off the mark. But here's the thing I want to say that you may not have given much thought to yet. Their request was not, Lord, we want to do something great in your kingdom. We want to maximize our personal potential. We want to grow and do and become. No. It was a much shorter route than that. Just put us in the position we want to be in. There's a world of difference between simply desiring a great position that you may or may not get placed in, depending on who you know or what your connections are and what your past performance has been. It's one thing to want to be in a great position, but there's really nothing noble or spiritual about that. But on the other hand, to want to do something great, that's different altogether. In fact, there are two kinds of people in this world. How many times have you heard that one? For these purposes in this sermon, the two kinds of people are those who want to be in a certain position, impressive position, prestigious, be in a position, and then there are those who want to do something great, something that makes a difference, something fulfilling to them and to others. And Jesus had to talk to them about that, verse 42 to 44. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers in this world lord it over other people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. Again, a whole lot of sermons you could preach from there, but the one thing I want to bring out is what's related to this topic. Jesus reversed the standard of greatness. First of all, again, it's not a position. It's not about getting placed in a position. It's about serving. He that will be the greatest of all must be the servant of all. The people with the biggest, best long-term success, really in business or in any other field, if it's long-term, are interested genuinely in serving other people. Now, they're going to make a profit too. But if all they want to do is occupy a position, they'll probably wind up occupying the same position for a long time or else losing it without advancing. be the servant of all means you do something. Again, not about trying to be in a position. It's about taking action. Verse 45, this is talking about, again, doing good things. Even the Son of Man, even Jesus himself came not to serve, but not to be served, but to serve others and give his life as a ransom for many. Think about this. When you're dealing, what kind of boss do you want? What kind of employee do you want? One who just wants to sit in a position? Or one who wants to be a servant to you, whether you are the boss or the employee? Which do you want? This is not complicated. John Claypool said that years ago he had a fascinating conversation with the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and that CEO got to talking about this very thing that I'm zeroing in on here. The difference in the people who want to be in a position as opposed to those who want to do something for the organization and for others. And here's what that CEO said. There are these two kinds of people. Those who want to be in a position, those who want to do something, and my job is to pick out which are which. And those who simply want to be in a position, my job is to weed them out as quickly as possible and to promote those who want to do something. See, those are the people who have themselves off their hands. And the problem with James and John, the bottom line problem, of all the things you could say at a very basic level, they wanted to be something without doing something. They wanted to be something without doing anything sacrificial. They wanted to be something without doing anything bold or difficult or dangerous. They wanted to be in this power position, but they weren't willing to be unpopular or misunderstood the way Jesus was soon going to be unpopular and misunderstood. Which is one reason Jesus said, you don't even know what you are asking. Let me give you a quote from Emerson about being misunderstood. The cost of doing great things will usually be, on some level or another, you will be misunderstood. But he asked this question, is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood. And Socrates and Jesus and Luther and Copernicus and Galileo and Newton and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. And to be misunderstood, by the way, is usually to be judged by the people who don't understand. And most of those people who won't understand are the ones who are very into being in certain positions within certain systems and keeping whatever rules and checking whatever boxes are necessary to remain in that position, in that institution. They don't understand people who are willing to be misunderstood, to have their name cast out as evil. James and John did not know what they were asking. Now, eventually they did grow into great men. Because you know what happened after the resurrection of Jesus, after they saw him die, completely give himself, and lay down his life only to take it up again, something shifted in them. And that became their pattern. And they jumped out of that whole being in a position, and they saw themselves as having a mission. That's when they became great. That's when they did great things. They said they did such great things that they became a threat to the empire. Now, I want you to pause for a moment. These two men were fishermen with no education and most likely illiterate. The Roman Empire was the greatest world power this earth had ever seen. But these two fishermen who took on a mission and forsook position, quit worrying about their position, their standing, whether or not they were in who's who. They took on a mission, they took such action that they became such a threat to the Roman Empire that they were arrested, tortured, and killed. The Roman Empire didn't have time to go around arresting people who were merely occupying special positions. No. Their attention was on those threatening people who were actually out doing something. Well, Paul had a similar thing happen. He talked about the early days of his life where he had the highest level of education that a Jewish rabbi among the Pharisees could attain. It was the equivalent to a PhD today. Studied under one of the most noteworthy Hebrew scholars. He was a big-time leader in the established religion. He was part of that system. He had a position, buddy. And he was determined to keep it. And he was threatened by anybody who didn't fit into his system. But then, after his conversion, listen to what he wrote. This won't be on the screen. I want to read it to you, though. This is Philippians 3, 7 and 8. He's looking back to what he used to have before he found Christ, before he let go of his position in order to take hold of a mission that changed him and his world and is still having rippling effects. He said, I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of Christ, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things and now count them but rubbish. He gave up a lot of position, status. His name was marked out of the Jewish Who's Who dictionary. He gave up a lot to do even more. And I want to ask you, what are you willing to give up, or what would you need to give up in order to do what your soul really longs to do? How might you have to jeopardize your position, your status, your reputation in order to do what your soul needs for you to do and to actually make some changes accordingly in your outer life? Now, what most needs doing in you, inside you and in your life, depending on who you are and where you are at this stage of your life, the thing you need to do may actually be something that would impress and would please some really good people. And that is the case if you are in any sort of self-destructive lifestyle. You're caught up in any sort of self-destructive behavior that is ruining your life and hurting the people around you. and you've lost your reputation because of that, and you feel misunderstood, but the real deal is the problem is not that you've been misunderstood, it's that they do understand. In such cases, what you would have to give up would be those patterns of thought and action that are destroying you. For some people, that's the application. For others, it's a little different. For others, doing what your soul needs you to do, what you need to do in order to just know deep inside that you are finally living out what you were put here to live out. That you're finally becoming the person you've always been. The person you're capable of becoming, doing what you're capable of doing. And you, on the other hand, you're going to have to be willing to displease some people in order for that to happen. You will be misunderstood, but I know this. You know it too, you just need reminders. That's true of a lot of what I'm saying. A reminder, you will never be everything that everybody wants you to be. You will never do everything that everybody wants you to do. You certainly will not do or be what those people caught up in being in positions think you ought to do, because what they think you ought to do is what they're doing. But how much fulfillment do they really have? How do they really sleep at night? How when they're all alone, how do they really feel about where they are at this point in life as opposed to where they could be if they were willing to let go of some things? Take some scary, risky steps. You can't be everything everybody wants you to do, but I tell you, you can and must do this. You can grow into the person you were meant to be. And you can do unique things. You really have the God-given potential to do. And you can take the action steps toward those. I want to give you some pointers from the screen to summarize how to actually put this into practice. When you sense that, unlike Paul, you've not let go of a cherished position in order to do something, here's what will keep happening. Okay? If any of this resonates, then it's talking to you, okay? Certain longings, certain visions of who and where you can be just keep coming up and won't go away. You almost wish they would, but they don't. What do they reflect back about you and who you are becoming or not becoming? Number 2, following these action steps to do something truly significant, which, by the way, may not be significant by other people's standards. But to you, it is. Because it's the one thing that will bring fulfillment, contentment, and the sense that you are in the flow of the Spirit. It'll usually involve something costly. Giving up something, letting go of what you have in order to take hold of what your soul needs. Embracing your true path will not involve ease or comfort. Number 3. What response do I keep making? And as Dr. Phil would ask, whatever response you keep making or failing to make, how's that working for you? Number 4. If you are not yet on the path, you'll know it. You'll know whether you're in the flow or whether you're out of alignment. But guess what? That which is deepest and earliest and truest in you is still longing to manifest. Number 5. What's the pattern here? Where's the energy? Where's the synchronicity? You know what synchronicity is? It's a big word for little coincidences that have great significance. You've heard the deal. Coincidence is when God chooses to remain anonymous. Synchronicity. Abraham Lincoln experienced something like that early in his life. I want to share part of his story. This is when he was a younger man. He was in the general store business in Illinois. Business was bad. He was about to go under. And he said to his partner sitting on the porch one afternoon, he said, I don't see how we're going to make it, but if I would sell everything in this store, if I could just sell it and get enough money to buy one copy of Blackstone's commentary on English law, because that one volume would allow him to study the law and begin the first step that would lead to the next step and the next step. About the time a wagon drove up, man there said, I'm moving my family west, trying to lighten the load, and we need a little cash. I got a barrel, a really good barrel that holds water on the back of the wagon. I'll sell it for 50 cents. You can have everything in it. It's got some miscellaneous junk stuff in it. And so Abraham Lincoln later said, I took the last 50 cents I had, I bought that barrel, rolled it into the back room. Later that afternoon, he went back, decided to rummage around, moving papers, and his long, skinny arms thumped across something solid. And he pulled out a thick, leather-bound book called Blackstone's Commentary on English Law. And Lincoln said, I stood there holding the book, looking up toward the heavens, and there came a deep impression on me that God had something for me to do, and that God was showing me now that I had to get ready for it. So he began to prepare himself mentally and spiritually for that task. What's your next task? I'll tell you this. Whenever we get ready to start doing what we're really here to do, I don't know about you, but I like to know what all 7 steps are going to be so I can map it out. You'll probably only be given the first step. And number 6, what's the first step? That for him it was discovering that book. And the guidance for the first step, for the next step, comes only after you take this. I'm going to close with this quote, Carl Jung. The difference in being and doing, a position versus moving out into the fullness of what you can and were meant to be, that truly is significant. Here's how you know when you're moving in that direction. You know something new is happening when what once defined you, what was once the primary marker of your identity, you realize, is not coming with you into the next chapter of life. That's when you're moving into doing. Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only.